Hello, screenwriters, and welcome to Writing for Screens. Ask me almost anything. My name is Glenn Gers, and I am the Chief Executive Everything at Writing for Screens, a YouTube channel which tries to teach some basic concepts of screenwriting to help you figure out what works for you. I am trying to take the things that I learned in a 25-year career writing for TV and movies here in Hollywood, California. Well, not Los Angeles, California. On my way out of the business, I am trying to leave behind some of the things I had to figure out for myself in case they are useful to you. There's no grand theory, there's no book, there's no system. It's just a bunch of tools, tips, skills, insights that you may or may not be able to use. You have to figure that out because that is the main thing I'm trying to teach. You are responsible to figure out your way of doing it for your kind of art, because that's what every artist has to do. Every artist has to figure out their way of working for their kind of work. I'm just going to try and help you with that, showing you some stuff I figured out. The main way you can find out the stuff I figured out, the really juicy stuff on this channel, is here on, this is a little screen capture of my main page. If you look down, there are some playlists. Let me show you a close-up of those playlists. The first three on the page are Screenwriting Essentials, Screenwriting Tools, Skills, and Craft, and The Process, Being a Writer. These are each 10-minute little videos, little condensed, hopefully useful lessons. They're just a bunch of things I figured out in the shortest, most tool-like, practical, skill-like way I could put them so that you can try them out. See if you like them. See if they fit what you're doing. If they do, yay. If not, don't worry. It was just 10 minutes. Move on. There's a lot of them. There's 50 of these things, plus a lot of live streams. I am doing live streams now every Wednesday. I have been shifting my days and times, but now every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time Zone. And I think I'm going to say hello to all of these fabulous people who have come to show up. Hi, Nathan. Things are okay with me. Not bad at all. Hello, Sonia. Hello, Ellen, who's also saying hello to some of the other regulars. Hello, Seven. Hi. And Jaspal, hello to Canada. Welcome. Very nice to meet you. Isaiah, I am so glad that you are here. Please, all of you, feel free to... I helped you so much. That is super cool. I am really, really glad. Please feel free to ask questions as I do this today. Hello, Wolf Powers 2. Great to see you. Today's main topic, first topic, thing I'm going to get into first is a question that has been asked of me several times, which is, does every scene in a script have to advance the plot? And I think most of you will probably, if you know my thinking, you will know what I think about this, but I'm going to talk about it in a little detail because it's worth discussing. Oopsie, I just accidentally put my screen to sleep. Hello, Helene. Very nice to meet you. A first time hello from Helene. Great to see you. Okay, so let's talk about this issue. Advancing the plot. Does every scene have to advance the plot? This is one of those things you hear in some how-to teaching books and courses and things. And my answer is kinda, sorta, I guess. It's not wrong. I just don't know that it's helpful advice. I feel like it's oversimplifying the structure and the process of scripts, and it's kind of an academic analysis. People will use this like a weapon. It didn't advance the plot, meaning they didn't understand it, they didn't like it, it doesn't fit what they thought it should be. There's a lot of reasons that people say things don't advance the plot, which turn out to be just a way of saying, I'm not liking this. There are things that go off the rails, I won't deny that, and so I think that this is trying to get at that. But I feel like applying some judgment is not how you do great writing. I'm going to put it like this, because I think that this is sort of, I think I'm going to use this slide a lot. This is my rule. Anything does not have to anything. This is the thing. People say like every something has to something. And the answer is, to my mind, is always going to be, nah, that's not true. And not every, not always, sometimes. It may be a useful thing to think about, but it is not every scene has to advance the plot. That's just not true. It's just simply not true. On the other hand, should scenes generally be advancing the plot or the story or the progress in some way? Yeah, probably. Is that every should do? No. Anything does not have to whatever they think everything should do. It's just not so. Okay? So let's talk about what this scenes advancing the plot really means and see what useful things we can get out of that. And hi, Isaiah, I see that. I'm going to just quickly check this question, but I'm going to answer it after I finish this brief thing on this topic. Yeah. Okay, this kind of relates to it, but I also have feelings about this. So let me get back to this in a minute after I finish the advancing thing. But yeah, that starting from normal thing, I have thoughts. Okay, the first question though I have before anything is, what does advance the plot even mean? Like, it suggests that there's this sort of mousetrap kind of contraption, this structure, and everything in it has to be a part of that contraption, which is there was a period of time in American culture, certainly, and to a certain extent in some European culture, but really this is a Broadway and Hollywood kind of 20th century, early 20th century to mid 20th century concept, that the plot is this contraption, is this structure, and every piece of it is a working piece that comes together to become this trick gimmick. I just don't see stories working exactly like that. There is such a thing as structure, absolutely, and your story, your scenes should be working towards that thing. But advance the plot is where I get into trouble. First of all, this plot thing. As you may know, I believe that you can divide it like this. The story of something is what happens to the people in the story. It's their story, their events, their life, their experience. That's a story. It goes in one direction. It follows their path. But you can tell that many ways. That's the plot. The plot is this artistic construction you put over people's stories. The story will always be their experience. But your plot can start in the middle, go back, can be going backwards, can take only certain pieces. In fact, all plots take only certain pieces. So that's the first thing, is that if you're just thinking about plot, you may be missing the important double layer that is here, which is there's a thing that happened to people and there's how you tell it. And I think a lot of people just think it's the plot. It's a sort of formulaic, generic way of looking at stories. I don't like that. But the main thing about advancing the plot is that almost every good plot spends a fair amount of time frustrating and disrupting and disappointing and pushing the hero back from their goal. That advancing the plot suggests that you're heading towards your goal, that the character has something they're trying to do, and everything in the story is helping them do that. And that is boring. That is deadly dull. Most stories are about how people try to advance, but they can't. Things show up, things are revealed about them or what they're trying to do that means that they actually fail most of the time during a plot. So, the thing that I think that we should talk about here is the things that are not advancing the plot. In other words, not succeeding on your march towards your objective, but the things that you might have a scene be about that are not advancing the plot. For instance, very often, scenes will be about failing to make progress. I'm sorry, there's a typo there. Failing to. but also sometimes you get a break. Sometimes there's a moment of respite. Sometimes there's some story, there's some scene in the story which is about people not doing the thing that they are marching towards, but maybe we learn a little bit something else about them or their world. Maybe a layer is revealed about their character, or an insight into what they are trying to do, or the situation that they are in, or the world that they are entering. There's so much that happens, and now and then there's just something that's comic relief. I mean, you get like Shakespeare, who's, I think, considered a good writer. Shakespeare often will have a thing that is not advancing the plot. Sometimes it'll just be a character revealing their feelings in the moment. Or, very often in Shakespeare, they'll just take a little time out for some side character to be like silly and making fart jokes, because that's a big part of Shakespeare. So is that advancing the plot? Has Shakespeare screwed up? No. There's just that there's more to writing than just a well-made contraption, which all zeroes in on one thing. Those are good. Nothing wrong with that, but it's not the only way. Not everything has to do that. Sometimes there's a value to a bit of mess. There's a value to something that isn't part of the contraption because it allows you to see and feel and think things. The story has involved you enough that you can stop and think about something else and get an insight. You can see the world. A lot of what art should be doing is saying, hey, look at people. Look at the world. Look at this stuff. And the involvement in the story is why we care. So I would say that every element probably should relate to the plot somewhat, or relate to the story. Maybe it supports it. Maybe it's an obstacle, or maybe it's a conflict or a contrast or some background that helps you to understand it, but is not actually advancing the plot. I want to very briefly, hi Dialectics Junkie. Not even trashy movies will have every scene advance. Yes, the human nervous system can't take it. Now, and this is where you get into this tricky thing about academic rules. What's advancing? Like, what if they, and this is a legitimate argument, what if revealing a bit of the character is advancing the plot? Because now you have, motivated them more. Yes, I like that definition, but then the words advancing the plot get a little mushy because it's advancing the plot in the sense that it is stimulating the plot or giving power or insight into the plot, but it's not actually doing anything that changes the plot. So that's why I just don't like that phrase, every scene should advance the plot. I do think that probably most scenes should have something to do with what it's about. But, I can't even say that. Now and then you'll have something just whacked out where something is totally different, and that's cool. It's okay. And I want to just briefly talk about some movies I've either seen recently or that I like or that I don't like but I think are interesting, that don't do this, that don't have a good plot. Patterson, Jim Jarmusch's movie with Adam Driver about a bus driver in Patterson, New Jersey, who is also a poet. And it's talking about some events in his life, but it is not talking about a plot. There's no plot. There's stuff that happens in this guy's life in one particular week. After Sun, which is a very beautiful movie, but there's no plot. In fact, I was confused because there are I heard certain people say that there was a big dramatic twist or reveal. And there's a slow, steady revelation of character, but there's no plot. There's no plot. It's just that simple. Martin Scorsese's After Hours, back from the turn of the century, is a dynamite episodic story where there's all these fabulous. This poor guy on the course of one terrible night runs into all these adventures. They're not really a plot. It's really just a bunch of things that happens. Likewise, Oh Lucky Man is specifically a story of this young man's journey through the world for a part of his life. It's not even his whole life. Lucky Man. It's dynamite. Oh, there should be an exclamation point. No, Lucky Man, and Not Fade Away, which is not a really great movie. It's the first feature after The Sopranos that the man who created The Sopranos did, and it's an autobiographical movie about David Chase's youth. It's got some great scenes. It's got some okay scenes. It's got some mess in it. Anyway, the point is these have no plot. There's no plot, but they're good movies. They're worthwhile. They're worth seeing. I thought they were good. Anyway, okay, so my basic point here is that I think people created this every scene should advance the plot kind of test, kind of rule, because they were afraid of things being boring or repetitive or unimportant, because a novice writer sometimes can do that, can sometimes be boring or repetitive. You can have the same scene kind of twice, which doesn't advance the plot because it's the same scene twice. It's just doing the same thing. Or just things unimportant or unrelated or unnecessary. And so this got to advance the plot helps keep you from doing those things. But you can also have a totally boring scene advance the plot. So therefore, I would say that the thing you want to do here is fix the boring, repetitive, or unimportant parts. Don't worry about advancing the plot. Just don't make anything in your movie repetitive, boring, or unimportant. That's my version. But you know what? Maybe there's a scene where they want to be boring. That's okay. If there's one scene that's a little boring, neat. There's some movies that some people say are all boring, but certainly every scene advancing the plot, I just got to go back to my rule. Anything in art does not have to do anything. There's no everything has to do this. So that's it. Let's move on because you've got some fabulous questions rolling at me here. Let me just quickly take a look. Okay. Fresh out of film school. I seem to have short film brain and feel constantly trying to advance the story far too quickly. Yes. Okay. It will be all right. I don't know if you outline, Isaiah, but it might help because with an outline you could write a short and then sort of put stuff in, fill in, stretch out, take steps. Like the thing is about a short is the main difference between short brain and feature brain or series brain is the number of developments. That's really the thing. That a short tends to have like a premise and then a little bit of development and then an end, because that's all it's short. And with anything longer, you need to have things develop. In that things twist and turn, things unexpectedly happen. I will say, actually, I don't like to, I'm forced to recommend my own videos. Please take a look at this video because of the middle steps. And a lot of people have these problems with these middle steps. This is not an absolute, not every story will fit. These questions are just questions. They are not a form. They are not a formula. You can't do that. They are just questions. And in these 6 questions, let me see if I can find what they are. Here they are. Okay. What it's about, what do they want? So there's a character, they're trying to do something, but something's in the way, okay? Character, goal, obstacle, first 3. Then they do something. That's really key to most stories. However, and this is the most important thing, they do something and it doesn't work. That is the main thing about longer stories. When you're worried about shorts turning longer, most of the things that you do in a story fail. It may just be you have to take 12 steps to get to the thing, and each step is hard, so it's like a mini short, and each one leads to or creates the next. But very often it's just, I see my goal. I am going to go towards my goal. I head towards my goal and I get like knocked out of the way because my plan was wrong, or my understanding of the object is wrong, or my understanding of myself is wrong. Something's wrong, and so your plan goes wrong. And then you have to say, okay, now what do I do about that? Like, oh, I wanted to rob the bank, but it turns out there's an alarm system. Or it turns out I get panic attacks. Okay, either one of those requires a new step. And that's how you build a longer plot. Okay. All right. As a professional writer, cool. Yeah. Patterson is a beautiful, beautiful, fabulous movie. Are we talking about writing scenes that make the character relatable so the audience is... No, not necessarily. I mean, that is a thing you can do, but you don't have to. First of all, not every character has to be relatable. Most characters, in fact, may not be. Now, I will say, even the characters who are evil or failed or weak or terrible, you hopefully will find something that is identifiable or, quote, relatable even in them. So this relatable thing is an interesting question, Randy, because the answer is, yeah. Like, all right, let me take some examples. In some of my professional jobs, I had to write a story about a man who shoots his wife because he's a rich guy who married a woman, and she has become unhappy in their marriage, and she's cheating on him, so he shoots her in the head. Relatable? I think the feeling of fearing that someone will leave you, that's relatable. I think the feeling of anger is relatable. I personally would not shoot someone over that. But it's relatable if you dig down into it. So the answer is, ideally, you don't want to write a scene that does that. You want to think about the arc of the character that way. And once again, I'm going to recommend my own brilliant videos, Building Character Arcs. I will put links to all of these in the description about 10 minutes after I sign off today. Go back to this video, look at the description on the YouTube page, and you will find links have been added. I'm just making notes to myself so I remember to actually do that. Here's the point. What makes a character relatable is not saving a cat or that they are hoping to make $1 million or whatever it is that you think is relatable. What's relatable is their story, the thing they are trying to do, their desire, their needs, their actions that they take. All of that stuff makes someone relatable. Like, you can relate. I can relate to someone who has a goal that I don't care about at all, but I care that they are making an effort to build themselves a future. I wrote a whole script about race car drivers in 1905. Now, I don't know how to drive, and I do not care at all about auto racing or, frankly, about most sports. I mean, I admire them, I like them, I understand some of them, but it's not like a thing that oh man, I get that. But I got the idea of being in a competition where you could die. That seemed relatable. Not that it happens to me, but that I could put myself into that space. And the other thing is that each character had, somebody wanted to build a better car. Somebody wanted to build a racetrack. Somebody wanted to prove themselves. Somebody wanted, those were things I could relate to. So that's what I think. But that's not a scene. There may be a scene where it's revealed, but it's also more than that, your identity of the character in your heart. Your feeling about the character is what makes somebody relatable. I don't like Michael Corleone much at all, but I relate to him in that he's taken on a task for because he cares about people in his family. Even though he hates what they do, he is going to actually try and help them, and as a result becomes like them, just decides to do what they do. Spoiler, by the way. But if you haven't seen The Godfather, see The Godfather. So that's what I think about relatable. Michael isn't relatable because of any one scene. He's relatable because of the sequence of scenes and the actions he's taking and the desires he has. Hello, Darian Robertos. Very nice to meet you. I don't think we've met before. Hi, Hyro. The best way we do plot, in my opinion, is keeping secrets from the character and from the audience. To a certain extent, you got to watch out. If you keep enough secrets, no one knows what's going on. So you have to keep very specific secrets. I actually did a whole video about this called Withholding, which I will link to in the description. I don't have the thumbnail right now. Hi, Donna. Good to see you. Thank you for being here from Australia. Oh, thank you. 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 Everybody say hi, Tom. Thank you. Yes, exactly. You have to define the values. If things are just one thing, you don't got a story. Story is a journey. It's peaks and valleys and twists and turns. Okay. No. This is really important. This video, which, here's the thing. This video is related to a Film Courage interview video that I did, in which they gave it the headline, "If you can't answer these 6 questions, you don't have a story." That's not true. I love Film Courage. They have made my life marvelous. I had 36 subscribers before I did those interviews. Now I have like 16,000, which is, to me, unbelievably cool. They have like 300,000, or I don't even know. Anyway, the 6 questions, if you can't answer the 6 questions, you don't have a story. That's not true. You might have a great story without those 6 questions. The 6 questions are just tools. And I made that a pinned comment. It's just, if you feel like you don't know what you're doing, this may help you to figure it out. It's not the answers. It's not a form in which you fill out the answers and then you know. That won't do it. You can't write if you have those 6 questions answered. They are a way for you to figure out, scene by scene, what you're doing. That's what those are. Okay. Scorsese just produced it, as far as I know. That's very much Paul Schrader. Paul Schrader is the master of the very, very slow burn. He will just take a story and build and build and build to an explosive climax. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It worked great in Taxi Driver for me. It worked, I think, great in First Reformed. I think that's a brilliant movie. Card Counter didn't thrill me, but I got it. Anyway, so the answer is, yeah, it can be infuriating, but you got to sort of say, okay, this is a story about an incremental tightening of a single spring until it snaps. Okay. MeWe Arts. MeWe, it is okay. I am glad you are here. It doesn't matter if you're late because these are all recorded. And once I stop doing this live, it will show up as a video and you can always watch the beginning and you could also not watch it. If you miss some of me, it's okay. You are what's important. What you do with your time is what's most important for you. And never think that anything I have to say is more important than what you have to do. I had a weird job where I just sat at my desk for most of the time, and then every 3 months I would have a meeting. I got lucky. I was working on features. I was not working on the staff of a show. If I worked on the staff of the show, I would have a harder time. I worked part-time on some shows, and my wife very lovingly drove me. Hi, World Teller. Thank you. It is very nice to meet you. I like your colorful icon. You are welcome. I use as a game with people, I think. Okay, cool. These are all, the whole point of writing is you try different tools. It's like a toolbox. And you have to figure out which tool is good. And the more experience you have, which is why I urge you to write a lot of stuff over time, you will get more comfortable with saying, oh yeah, I need that tool here. I need the who is it about tool here. Maybe I don't need that. Maybe I already know. Fine, then you don't need that one. Take a different one. That's the whole point. I now understand the importance of a character in terms of driving the story plot. But what if you come up with a character first? Cool. Or a plot first. It doesn't matter. Here's the question. What if you have a character but no plot, or what if you have a plot but no character? The answer is either one of them will give... Excuse me, I have hiccups. Either one of them will give you the other. Because if you have a plot, somebody must be doing this, and they must be doing it for a reason. If you've got a plot where somebody does something, you can ask yourself the question, which is, let's just play a game. Okay. In this case, you know what they do, so you actually know the fourth one, So the question is, why do they want that? What do they want? That's the second one. And what is making it hard? Why do they have to do this thing that you have them do? Like, why can't they just have it? So the answer is that's why I think about this. But my main question is, like, if I know that I've got a plot where somebody robs a casino, the question would be, why do they rob the casino? Because there's different reasons. Some people rob the casino just because they want to see if they can get away with it. And some people rob the casino because they need to get the money for an operation for their kid sister. Those are two very different people, two very different characters, and everything involved should relate to that when you start to think about it. So in that case, if you have a plot, think about the characters. Think about where they end up. Do they get away with it, or do they get tragically crushed? That will make your person different, because you don't want to tragically crush someone who you think is admirable and worthy of support. If you come up with a character, then the question is, what is the character doing? And once you know what they're doing, you start to work out a plot. I urge you to outline. I think it's very hard to write a story if you only have a character and you try and just write it. I urge you to outline. And therefore, I would suggest that you look at, yes, I've got videos. We've got videos here. Okay, so therefore, I would say look at why outline and how to outline, because that will help you. Because in either case, no matter what you need in a story, you're going to get the other parts if you just go through the process. If you work through, I have to figure out the beginning, middle, and end. I have to figure out all the scenes. I have to write these scenes. You're going to have to answer all the questions. You may answer them impulsively. That's cool. Doesn't matter. I like to answer them. I can't write the text. There's a truck outside. I can't really write that well until I know who they are and what they're doing, until I have the outline. Just because there's too many possibilities and I don't know what to write. So for me, having the outline, knowing the scenes, means I can say, oh, in this scene, they want this guy to give them the secret code. Okay, now I know what the scene's about. Okay. But the main thing is, don't fret if you have one part and not the other. I did a video about that. I do so many great videos. Use what you have. This is a really good one for that. I will link to all of these, and process of questions. I'm just writing it down that I want to write. Okay. These are two videos about the idea that whatever you have, if you have, all you have is, I want to do a chase scene in the rain. Cool. Now, who's chasing? Why? How is it going to end? Blah, blah, blah. If you start with whatever you have, you will eventually have to have everything. So just keep doing the process and you're cool. Don't worry about it. Okay. Just Paul. Is there a risk in having the first scene of a screenplay be from the part of the story that takes place? No. Yeah, it does. What you're saying, you're talking about is the timeline of the plot. Remember I was talking about story and plot. The idea that a story is the stuff that happens to the people in the story. That's their story. That's their lives. That's their experience. And it goes in one direction and it happens one thing after another. And that's what a story is. A plot is when you take a piece of that and say, I'm going to start where they're running down the street because they're being chased by a group of polar bears in the middle of the city. And then people are going to say, why is that happening? And then I'll stop and I'll say 3 weeks earlier, and then I'll go back. Cool, you've hooked them with a nice, dramatic, unusual event. And now everything we see will have a certain tension. Where are the polar bears coming from? So it actually is, there's no risk that I know of. The only risk is that it's sort of become, like 3 weeks earlier has become kind of a routine formula. So you got to watch out for just seeming a little boring. Weirdly, telling stories out of order has become boring. It has become familiar. Interesting. In the show Arcane, they had the characters first and the story after. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Not only did they have the characters, they had a whole game going in all sorts of directions, and then they had to figure it out. And they did indeed work really well. Arcane is a really, really well done animated series that is based on the game League of Legends, and it's excellent. I strongly recommend it. Well done, Helen. Helene or Helen? Helene. You tell me. I'm figuring it's Helene. Hi, Michael. Terry Gilliam often goes off the track from his main plot. Yeah, Terry Gilliam is nuts. Which is fine. You're certainly allowed to go off you're allowed to not even have a plot. Brazil, which I believe Terry Gilliam co-wrote, it has a hard time sticking to the point. On the other hand, it has these magnificent, wacky sequences because of that. So, on the other hand, when he gets something like a really brilliantly written script like Fisher King, he sticks to it pretty much. He just embellishes it to hell, which is great. I mean, when I say to hell, I mean to extremes. Embellishes it to heaven. He embellishes it until you go, oh my God, that's so great. Because I love the Fisher King. I like Brazil. But it is a little, but cool, dreamlike, fascinating, nightmarish. Okay, look at that. We're only halfway through, and I've answered all of the questions. Now that's dangerous. What are we gonna do? Watch out, guys, or I'll close. Somebody asked me a question. In the meantime, I will see if there's more I can say on the things that you've asked me about. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Cool. All right. So, awaiting questions. Otherwise, I'm just going to talk about some random things that people have asked me in the past, or stuff that I think is worth knowing about, because that's a thing we can do. Hold on. My computer's backing up. I'm going to stop it so that we have better quality video. Hello, Lazar. Very nice to meet you. So let me just talk. Is there any more about these questions that I can answer? Relatable. I think I did that. Keeping secrets. That's an interesting one. Let's see. Hold on. Sorry. Keeping secrets. I believe that every plot does. I mean, essentially, the biggest secret about any plot is essentially what's going to happen next. That's the thing that we're all trying to find out. However, very often, the secret is not what's going to happen. Like, you will often know just from the formula, from the genre, okay, I know this person is going to get out of this problem. I know Tom Cruise is not going to die in this Mission Impossible. So the question is, how is what I know going to happen not going to happen, or going to happen? So that's my main feeling about keeping secrets, is you want them, but you want to choose which one you are asking people to cling to, and then make sure that you are feeding that question. Hi, Darian. How do I develop the sensibility to know how to design the order of my scenes? That is an excellent question, and the answer is going to both frustrate and satisfy you, which is practice. There's the only way. Okay, there's two ways, but there's one main one. The main one is practice. You need to write many, many things. Writing one thing, even if you wrote the best thing in your life first, which would be actually a tragedy, then you still would have a lot that you didn't know, because you hadn't picked up enough tools. You hadn't used enough tools in different circumstances to be able to be a skilled, comfortable writer, to develop the sensibility, as you say, to say, I'm confident that will work. I'm a little iffy on that one. That only comes from the experience of writing things, and then ideally getting someone to read them, or even better, make them. And that does not have to be a professional. You can make it yourself, or get some college students who want to make a film and don't know how to write a script, or look on the internet and look for people or filmmakers who want scripts and don't have them, and you can write for them. Cool. The main thing is the experience of doing the writing and then seeing it go through production is how you get that sensibility. I would also advise either making like web videos or plays, because you can just write a 3-person play, put it on in your closet, put it on in your backyard, whatever your school. That is incredibly useful. Okay. I took a screenwriting course years ago at Sherwood Works Experimental. I do not know it, and I would not pass judgment, but the instructor had us write a building jumper suicide scene for practice. I guess the point is, how do we handle and seriously, if it goes without saying, I hope, if you are feeling those feelings, reach out for help. I believe there is a new hotline for suicidal feelings. I believe it is 988. But check. But look, anyway, just go on the internet and say, like, so if that is a real issue for you, or you are feeling at all triggered by this, please reach out. You will be amazed how much you will be glad you did. But the question is, how do you write that scene? How do you make that scene work? Or are you just saying it was a bad class? It doesn't have to be. That sounds like actually a good but powerful exercise. Do you have a short film structure outline? No. Hi, Stephen, by the way. Nice to meet you. Thank you for the question. I don't have... First of all, I am really bad. Several people have asked me about shorts. I have never made a short. I've almost never written a short. I don't think shorts. I don't understand them that well. I haven't even seen that many. But I will say that the main thing about a short film is, like I said, like a short story, the key to a short is that it doesn't develop multiple twists. You just don't have time. I mean, I suppose there could be some inordinately clever thing where there's like 3 or 4 twists in 10 minutes. The odds are that would then just be clever. It would be damn clever, but it would not be all the other things a short could be, which are insightful or rich in character. The main thing about a short is that it tends to have a hook, a character with a situation, and then it develops one reveal, which is, in a movie there's several, or in a series there's hundreds. Since I'm using 4 characters as POV in my story, you mean in the sense of, you're designing for 4 characters. Then the first thing you want to do is watch a bunch of stuff. That's the other thing you need to do. To develop sensibility, watch stuff that does what you do. You may not like the way it does, but you need to learn their tricks, their tools. How did they do it? Did they put the character's name in between the sections where they switch from POV? Is there some identifying trait, like Soderbergh's movie Traffic? He actually color-coded them. Okay, each character, one way that you could tell which character's life you were in was that there was a big heavy filter on it, blue or yellow or sort of a whitish. But there's different ways to do that. Lots of different ways to do different character POVs. And so the thing you have to do is A, practice it, try it, do it, and B, study every possible example of that you can, and the ones that you really like, watch a bunch of times. Try and break them down. Try and understand how they do what they do. I noticed in some the city is one of the protagonists of the story. What do you think? I think that is true and a good thing. Or not even the city. It can be the forest. It can be the whatever the location is. Yes, the place can be. It's a character in the sense that it is a presence or a thematic thing. It's usually not a presence. It's usually not a character in the sense that it takes any action. Although there are some stories where like the city is trying to stop them from leaving, or the house is trying to kill them. But mostly I think what you're talking about is the sense that there is a character in the sense of texture and personality and mood to a place, and that the interaction of the people with that texture or personality becomes a part of their story. I still think they're the characters. Okay, I'm working on the slow burn of life type of screenplay, having real trouble describing the subtle. That is a tough one. The answer I would say is, if you believe, I personally think, if you believe that it is only going to be emotionally expressed through the actor's performance without it showing up in the dialogue and action, that you do need to write it somewhat in the description. Like you have to say, Joe sits at the table, furious that he can't get a job. There's no other way to make sure that we know that that's what's going on. You don't want to go 12 paragraphs, but you do want to be describing what's inside so that the characters know, so that the actors and the director know what the scene is really about beneath the text. I think that's a legitimate thing to do, my opinion. I have a feeling the writer of Lethal Weapon had taken the same course and expanded the story. Yes, that wouldn't actually, most likely, the teacher, Lethal Weapon is old enough and was popular enough that the odds are the teacher learned screenwriting when Lethal Weapon was coming out, and it was considered, it was a huge hit. And so therefore, I am sure that it was, my guess is it's the other way around. My guess is the course came from that teacher, unless that teacher's really old, because Lethal Weapon's a long time ago now. But yeah, it's an interesting scene. It's a well done scene. Not my favorite movie. I think it's a little slick, but you gotta say, these characters are being defined through these great scenes. Absolutely true. When polishing a script, what's the most efficient focus for improving the story? At what point does one need a page one rewrite? Well, if you're polishing the script, you don't need a page one rewrite. A polish means that you are just tinkering with the language and the details within a structure that you've accepted, characters that you've decided you like, and generally that you think this is a good script that just needs a surface. That's why it's called polishing. You're just playing with the surface of things. If you are rewriting, I believe I just did a video on rewriting. We can talk, you should check that out. I don't have the thumbnail here. But you need a page one rewrite. Page one rewrite means you're basically throwing out every single scene or almost every scene and rethinking the entire thing. You do not want to do that unless you've you've decided that your entire script is a terrible error, that you actually did the wrong thing. If you failed at doing the right thing, then keep what's good. Never do a page one if you can help it. The main reason that people do page ones is because they are hired to rewrite someone else's script and they just don't like the other person's writing, or they just want more power and credit to themselves. They're like, screw that, I'm throwing out everything. Ideally, you don't do that. Ideally, there's something in there that you think is worth doing. And if there's something in there, keep it and then build around that. Tear away what's not good around that. But there should be scenes and moments and lines and bits that are good. Otherwise, the big question is, what are you doing? Why are you doing this thing at all? What are your thoughts on vomit drafts? I find I nitpick to death a first draft when I write, go back and forth. Yes, well, that is the reason that we do vomit drafts or first drafts, as they are called. Vomit drafts just means no matter what happens, keep writing more and don't go back. That's what a vomit draft is. And the idea is vomiting is like that. And the other thing about vomit drafts is that they're prejudging it. The writers are saying, this is going to be bad, and that's okay. That's all right, because I will then work with this thing that I have vomited out. I don't like that term because it's mean. It's saying that the thing you've done is yucky. And in fact, that first draft is just going to be a rough draft. That's my term, a rough draft. It's rough. There's some pieces in there that are really good, some moments, some ideas, some angles, something's working. And then you start to recreate. You rework it. You improve it. But you really don't want to improve vomit. So I don't like calling it a vomit draft. But the concept is right. So I'm not going to say don't do it. I just wouldn't call it vomit. It's icky. So I would say the answer is always, look, if you have a process by which you painstakingly write one sentence until you get it perfect and then painstakingly write the next one, and you can get something done in a reasonable amount of time without a lot of stress, do it. Great. Most people I know need to put something bad, something rough, something uncertain down in order to make it good. And that's what you want to do. And you don't want to get hung up on any one part of it until you have the whole, because there's things that are going to come later that will put the thing you're working on in a perspective and make it proportionally maybe not that important or not even right. So I would say do vomit drafts. Yes. Just don't call them that. How much to go into characters before you actually start writing the script? I would say as much as you feel like doing, but I would, the question is how much background do you do? I think if your background is not relating to the scenes, I would try not to do too much. I would try to make sure that anything you're thinking about is in the story. Because what can happen is you can write, and if it's not stopping you from writing, do all you want. The moment that you say, I can't write because I haven't figured out where this person went to school, write first and then figure that out later if you need to, or figure out while you're writing. But I would not hold off writing to do research or to do background thinking. That's my personal take. It's just, as someone who finds a lot of reasons not to write, let's take that one off the table. You want to have the background that explains or motivates or relates to what happens. If you need to know, why does he not know how to drive? Because he grew up in New York City. Okay, that's all you need. Now you happen to know that he grew up in New York City, but the only reason that you need to know that is because I don't drive. Okay. I would like to know how to figure out the order of scenes with multiple. Once again, there is no right answer to that. There's no one answer. The first answer is you need to become familiar with with other works that do that, because there's many ways to do it, and you have to decide which one you like. Like, it isn't possible to do 4 POVs in which you do a half hour of each one, and the audience has to put together the crossing points. That's a legitimate story. It may not be easily to sell one, but it could be brilliant. It's also legitimate to say, I'm going to do characters 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Usually, it's less schematic than either one, and it's a question of what's the big story? What's of the 4 or multiple of the multiple? Something or someone is tying them together. It could just be a theme. They could be people who never meet, but there's a theme, and how that theme gets expressed most powerfully is probably going to be the ending thing. So you have to think what in their stories, and then you build backwards from there. But the main thing is, what's the big story of your multiple POVs, and then what pieces help the audience care and want to see what's happening and get involved in people doing stuff. That's how you do multiple POV characters. The other way is, and I've mentioned this before, but I will do it again because it is exactly about this. This video, watch this video, because it talks about exactly that. So, how important is and further in the plot in every scene might be, and whether flashbacks are, it depends on the genre. That's entirely true. Flashbacks and the genre and the artistic style of that particular work. You can say they're not welcome in a thriller, but then you look at things like, DOA or The Killing or Memento, where flashbacks are a big part. There's lots of thrillers where flashbacks are a big part of the story. So I think it really depends on the choice, the genre, and the approach you have in that story. It's specific to the story. What do you think of the third? I don't agree. I don't think that Wells' appearance throws the story. I think that he wasn't a sub character. He was the main character. Okay, the story of Third Man, which is, by the way, a brilliant movie. If you guys haven't seen it, and you probably haven't because it's old and people don't know about it, but The Third Man. Let me just, here. Okay, you can see it here. The Third Man, written by Graham Greene, one of the great novelists of the 20th century, directed, I believe, by Carol Reed, one of the great British mid-century directors, starring Orson Welles and Joseph Cotten. It's a story about this sort of second-rate writer. He writes westerns, goes to post-war Vienna for a literary, cultural thing, but he's friends with this guy who was living there, and that guy died right before he got there, and he died mysteriously, and it may have been murder. And so it's about this guy getting into the case of what happened to his friend Harry Lime. And I can just say, Orson Welles' character is not a sub-character. He just hasn't shown up yet. So my answer is, to me, Harry Lime's appearance in The Third Man is an elevation. It's the escalation into the climax of the story. It's freaking brilliant and a great scene, a famously great scene. In my attempt to avoid being on the nose, I end up not giving it. Yes, I do. I do, because I did a video about that. On the nose dialogue. And so you can see my exact prescription, because I believe the secret is you should be on the nose very often. Part of the skill set of writing scripts is learning how much you need to be on the nose. Noses are very present in most commercial scripts. You can get something like After Sun, which is you would say isn't on the nose, but the truth is there are certain beats that are right on that nose. So my answer is, think about it. You will watch that video on the nose, because the answer is, on the nose is not as bad as people say. Alec Webb, I am just saying hello to you. Okay, let's call no more questions, because I am going to actually stop. But this has been great. I called for questions. I got exactly the number of questions I needed. You guys are brilliant. I think it's hard for beginning screenwriters to look at the process of screenwriting as a multi-path. Yes. Randy Higgin has told you all the truth. Here's the deal. Screenplays or scripts of any kind are almost never done. The only time they are done is after they have been shown to the audience. And even then they're not done. But you will be changing scripts up through post-production. You will be changing it during production. You will be changing it in order to get into production. You will be changing it in post-production. You will be changing it during the reshoots that they may do. Scripts are constantly being changed, and lots of people are having input. That is the reality of all except the most rarefied art film projects. The cool thing is, if you do indie DIY, you're doing rarefied art film. Even if you're doing rarefied art film serial killer thriller, doesn't matter, because you have complete control when you are doing DIY indie, which is why I always recommend it. It's not professional, but it's art. And that's the great thing. And it's also something you can do now. But the answer is every script. Randy Higgin is exactly right. Every script is not just written and then corrected and done. You write it, and then you learn about it, and then you rewrite it. And like me, I rewrite it 20 times, like serious rewrites, before I show it to anyone. And then I have to start rewriting it. So I can tell you, and that's hard because I get really stubborn, because I got it so many times through that I really feel like I answered the questions. But sometimes people want different things, or sometimes you don't see that you didn't answer it. Anyway, I will agree. As a final comment, Ellen has said, amazing group today, and I say that too all of you, because this has been fabulous and amazing, and I cannot wait till next week when we will do it again. Remember, we are Wednesdays at 1 p.m., and in between now and Wednesday, please go write something.